Hello and welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. We've reached episode 785. This is being recorded on August 7, 2024, according to my display. And my name is Sebastian Peak.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom, back from...
I'm Josh Walrath. Geez.
I'm going to talk over Josh now, and I'm going to be Brett Van Spurnberg.
Wow. Okay. Well, Jeremy's back, so expect a lot of overlap between Josh and Jeremy, just like...
as is tradition.
Yes. You can support the site and podcast distribution by going to patreon.com/PCPer. PCPer is the abbreviation for PC Perspective. And you can be like Carl, or is it Carl I, or is it Carl the First?
You know what? I kind of like either one. I like where you went with Carl the First, because he may be the only Carl I we have. So essentially, he is Carl the First, and he has stayed with us.
Carl with a K, by the way.
That.
So not Carl with a C.
No.
I don't know if we've had one of those or not, but yeah.
Carl with also is maybe more Germanic, I think, a little bit, perhaps. Yeah.
And Patrick L.
Or Swedish.
Yes.
Thank you, Patrick.
And Patrick L.
Patrick not taking the L by staying with us. Much appreciated.
What if it's Patrick 50?
Exactly what I was about to ask.
I like where you're going. You know, there's a lot of interpretive
we
dance.
We might have Carl 1 and we might have Patrick 50.
Thank you to the patrons. We appreciate you. And we're going to go right into one of the fan favorite segments of the show. Josh, please talk about what you ate.
Man cannot live on burgers alone. I realize that that may be anathema to some, borderline heresy, but it's true. And every once in a while, you've got to branch out. And I've been watching a lot of hot ones lately, and I had to get some wings. I just had to. And not only did I have to get some wings, but I had to get some smoked wings. So they put them in a smoker for multiple hours. Then they fry them. Then they toss them in the sauce. And in this case, the sauce was Angry Buffalo. And it was no joke. I mean, I can handle a little spice. I'm not like, super pepperhead. But, at the same time, you go to Wendy's and they say, well, this is spicy. And it's like, well, no, it's not spicy at all. Not even all that tasty. And anyway, Tabasco can go on anything. And I'm fine with that. And it doesn't bother me. But the Angry Buffalo sauce on these got your attention. And they were so tasty. I mean, if you've never had smoked, then fried wings, you're missing out on a tremendous culinary experience. It just takes it to another level of flavor. They're a little bit, they're a little bit more dry just because they've been cooked so long in a smoker.
Smoker will
but,
do that.
Once they fry it, I mean, and then they put the sauce on there. It's just fantastic. You just gotta have some wings, and I had some vegetables today, which, my doctor probably appreciates. And remember, if you're doing wings, never do ranch. Always blue cheese. No ranch, blue cheese.
Wise words.
Our lead story, of course, has to be the launch of the AMD Ryzen 5 and Ryzen 7 processors. The embargo lift was this morning. Outlets like AnandTech, this is Gavin over there at AnandTech, have a little bit of an overview of the Zen architecture and a look at performance, of course. And we will be looking at that shortly. But Josh, looking at this Zen 5 microarchitecture overview, is there anything that you're seeing that really stands out? And by the way, I want to draw your attention to the full-fat AVX 512.
Yes.
This is a significant redesign overall. And because it is a significant redesign and not just kind of more iterative, some people were not entirely sure where this would go. Would it be significantly faster for a clock? Were they going to have issues with like the original Bulldozer when it wasn't hitting the IPC numbers that they were expecting? And overall, looking at reviews and listening to what people say, Let's just get that out of the way. There's very mixed reviews. But we got to dig down a little further than that, because these are the 9600X and 9700X parts. And they're 65 watt TDPs. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But in terms of overall design, it's a highly expanded Zen architecture. Dual instruction fetch and decode. You can go back to that slide. Thank you. 4 instructions per pipe, 8 ops per cycle dispatched to the integer or floating point. I mean, so it's essentially at decode, it's 8 wide, and that is significant because they're able to feed a lot of instructions, a lot of data into the pipelines, whether they're integer or floating point. And we haven't seen that wide in a while. I mean, if you go back many, many years, when Samsung released an ARM architecture with an 8 wide decode, it was an incredibly bursty chip that petered out really quickly because behind that decode, all the instruction pipes, the execution pipes, just couldn't keep up. But AMD has done this so that they've got 8 wide, very competitive with what Intel has, and that back end just can keep up. Super efficient. These are running, so a 9600X is going to be faster than a 7600X, approaching 7700 speeds, but it does it at half the TDP and with 2 fewer cores and 4 fewer threads. That's just kind of insane for parts that we see these days. Usually we have maybe a 10% uplift if you're lucky, and they're achieving pretty good stuff. And as our friend Sebastian did point out, it's a full AVX 512 implementation. That's something that Intel has gone away from on the desktop. So AMD is coming in hot with these. So even though it's 65 watt TDP, socket power is around 83 to 88 watts, but that's still far, far lower than what we have seen as of recently, especially on the Intel end with their i5 and i7s and i9s that hit 230 to 250 watts at the socket at these burst states. And so that it can perform as well as it does at 65 watts is really a testament to the design. The single thread IPC is really outstanding. They have a massive boost over previous generation. It's very comparable to what Intel has in their big performance cores. And again, they're limiting the TDPs on this. So when they have a couple of interesting things going on. When they're doing gaming and they're doing productivity apps, which will utilize every single thread out there, they're not sealing the scaling that you would expect. And a lot of that is just power. They're limiting
capped.
that.
Yeah, they're capped.
Yeah, they are.
If we just quickly look at this chart, if you see the base frequency on the Ryzen 7 and 5 is half a gigahertz slower than the Ryzen 9s. But then turbos are very similar. They're within a couple hundred megahertz. However, with that 65 watt cap, you're never going to hit sustained turbo frequencies like you will with the Ryzen 9s. So if you're just thinking core counts, architecture, the capability is there. So either they're just segmenting this more aggressively than they did before with the Ryzen 7, which was previously a 100 watt part. Now it's down to 65. So it does feel like the Ryzen 7 is a little neutered this time around.
Well, they're holding it back, certainly, but this leaves AMD the chance to release like a 9800X, the 9800X 3D, things like that, which will take that TDP up higher and will improve overall performance. I mean, not just especially in the multi-thread, because that was an area where people were kind of disappointed. It's like, well, this doesn't scale in multi-threading as well as what we see with, single thread stuff. And of course, if you're limiting the power, when you're activating more parts of the chip and it's pulling more power, eventually it can't boost up that high. It just can't because it's power constrained. And so you're not seeing that scaling. And with the 9600 and 9700X, that kind of is the point of it, because you've got these still high-performing parts, but they're super efficient. They don't put out a whole lot of heat. It's kind of impressive what they've done, because if you're looking at this 3D Mark, the 7700X is a 130 watt TDP part, I think. It's up there, but the 9700X is almost half of that TDP and performing at that same level. And the Core i5 14600K, again, it's 180 to 220 watts at the socket. And so, AMD is kind of sandbagging with these initial two parts. And I think that we're going to see, with the unleashed, plus 100 watt TDP parts coming out next week, supposedly, we're going to see what this architecture can really do.
If anybody's upset by any of these results, by the way, I think the issue here is that it has an X. This would have been great from a 9700 65 watt part that you'd expect to see in a system integrator like OEM system. But for the X enthusiast part to be capped at 65 watts, to me, feels a little odd. I see it from the Ryzen 5. Why wouldn't you just leave if this can scale with power, why wouldn't you leave it at 105 watts? Because then you'd have wins over last gen in every chart.
Because Intel's made a name for themselves as, perhaps being a little bit too juicy, so why not?
That could have been the argument if Intel was 100% rock solid, stable, and maybe that was their push going into this. Well, Intel may have this and that, but we can do it for half the power of Intel or less. Yeah. Well, now that Intel's not even on the table, I can't imagine anyone who does this for a living recommending Intel right now when Intel says they don't know what the root cause of the issue is yet, and we're just waiting on a microcode update.
But don't worry, we're going to have a microcode update in no time at all.
That won't fix affected parts.
Mm-hmm. No, because they're dead. They died. They're an X CPU.
Well, remember, someone on Intel's board of advisors who runs a system integrator, they said that AMD processors fail more. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. Yes. Unbiased take later. We don't have physical samples of the Ryzen 5 and 7 in-house here at PCPer Midwest because they're in Memphis. Last I checked, so the FedEx tracking number. The samples were a little bit late to ship, and then they were delayed, even though they were supposed to be delivered this morning. So, it's I think the same issue that affected availability and caused a delay affected the sampling process. Or unless I was just overlooked. Who knows? We're not going to make this personal.
Something else to talk about is that they've increased the clock of the memory that it can handle.
Yes.
So it's up to 6400, which gives you a Uncore Infinity Fabric of 2133. And so overall latency is going to be improved if you're able to hit that. And unlike some of the Intel stuff, if you use 4 DIMMs at Intel, they only support up to speeds of 4600. I'm not entirely sure, but AMD at least gives you a little bit more options in terms of memory than what Intel officially does. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how these other SKUs that are coming up will perform. And it's still hard to beat AM4 5800X 3D for just a lot of stuff. I try to do 30-second soapbox here. These parts are interesting for creators. They're interesting for people who use their computers in ways beyond gaming. If you're a gamer, the 5800X3D is still a great CPU. AM4 is still a great platform. You don't need anything else. If you really want to go into AM5,
the 7800X 3D is still the gold standard. And these products are nice and their TDPs are interesting, but I feel like they're interesting for different applications. Like lower power draw can mean things like the possibility of passive cooling or very small form factors, or just,
Yeah.
just,
Or, if in about 6-8 months, work is offering you a new laptop and you've got a choice between Intel and AMD, and you're offered a Zen 5 chip, take the Zen 5 chip.
yeah.
This is going to be I think it should be pushed hard towards enterprise and small medium business. This is a brilliant chip for working. Excel is still single threaded. PowerPoint, Word, all of that crap, it's still going to benefit from this chip.
I thought Excel had
And
multi-threading. I thought
it does.
It depends.
Oh.
It depends on the like if you do a Monte Carlo through Excel, you can do that. But
Yes,
the vast majority of
it's
still single thread.
I would say over 90% is single thread of what people do.
Oh, hey, do you want to see an
Sometimes
exciting...
multi-threading is running Word and Excel at the same time. Just keep that in mind.
Okay.
But you're only focused on one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unless you've embedded an Excel chart in a PowerPoint, which, just for fuck's sakes. But anyways.
Or you have autosave on.
Yeah. But still, it's going to do you well. And your battery is not going to go down, or your battery is going to be significantly smaller and lighter.
Well, hey,
this is a business chip. It's
Robert
hard.
Halleck says Intel's next architecture on mobile is where it's at. It's more efficient than ARM, and et cetera.
He might
Current architecture, though.
No.
The AMD Strix is outstanding for what it offers. It's a physically big chip for a mobile part.
Yeah.
But it's got a large GPU. It's got the NPU in there, and it's not a chiplet design. And I know that we're going off track here a little bit, but the overall performance and power efficiency and all that offers is just truly, it's outstanding. And AMD, according to the latest John Petty research, they're at 20% of the mobile market.
Yeah,
which is something that they've never had. And
never.
They're at 25% in data center, which again has not been seen since Athlon 64.
And that's where the money is too.
It is. So but going back to the 9600 and 9700X, I think that they've gotten. I'm not trying to be overall pro AMD fanboy type thing here. But
you don't have to try. It comes naturally.
It is. It's a natural thing.
Tell it is.
I think it's gotten a worse reputation just from expectations than what were actually delivered. Again, it's a 65 watt TDP thing, and it's competing against 120, 150, core, socket wattage of 250 watts. And it does very, very well against it with that, those thermal limitations that are pushed on it. It does fine in gaming. It's just not leading the pack like people were hoping to. Again, these are two SKUs. They're the two lower end SKUs on the first of the Zen 5 stuff. And we're going to get some stuff next week where we can really take a look at when you let the power go and where it can take this architecture, because so far what we've seen has been pretty impressive, given the limitations. We put blockers on this versus what the rest of we're comparing it to. So it's going to be fun to see. I think a lot of the negative coverage is a little overwrought, but it's a next generation CPU architecture, and it brings a lot to the table. And it's super, super efficient for what it does. So I can just leave it at that.
So, Josh, we talked about AMD financials last week. And oddly enough, Intel had not released theirs, which you mentioned was a little unusual.
Unusual.
Do you think there's a reason for that?
Oh, boy. I don't know. Maybe because usually AMD always does their results after Intel. Intel is the bellwether of the industry. And AMD had a solid quarter. Intel had kind of a solid quarter, but not what they usually have. And there are issues for that.
Hold on. Solid quarter? They lost $1.6 billion and have laid off a huge percentage of their workforce. Their stock has tanked. It went from $30 a share just a few days ago, currently trading at $18.99. They've lost a tremendous amount of their market valuation.
Well, anyway. They can, like 15% of their staff, which kind of started a bit of that.
Yeah. Okay. Q2 2023, the revenue was $12.9 billion with a $1.5 billion profit. This year, 1 year later, it was $12.8 billion. So they're only down $100 million, but their loss was $1.6 billion. So there are positive things here that we can talk about, but there are also plenty of negatives. The big one that we see is they're eroding data center margin a lot. Like I said, AMD is up 25%. And Intel does not ship out nearly as many AI cards as what NVIDIA and now AMD is doing. So they're taking a hit on those high margin. Their gross margin for this quarter was 35.4%. And for a company that constantly was around 60% for a majority of its years since about, say, like 95 and above, this is a huge hit. Like Sebastian said, they took a $1.6 billion loss. And it's probably going to get kind of rough. Their outlook is not great for the next quarter. They feel they're going to make a little bit more, but not a huge amount. And the issues that we are seeing with their desktop chips is going to be a giant headache for them. They didn't really talk about much of it in their discussion, but it's going to be rough. So again, let's go through. Their client computing group, which is CPUs, it's doing well. Their mobile is still very good, up 9%. Data center down 3%. Network and edge down 1%. Their Altera is down 57%. That's their FPGA group. Mobileye down 3%. Everything else down 43%. Intel Foundry, though, it's up 4%. So that was kind of a positive for them. They made $4.3 billion off of that particular thing, and they have been really pushing the foundry technology. This is not 2015 through 2023 that we are talking about, where their foundry just could not do anything right. They're starting to really push the technology. They're bringing in partners. They're improving their software. They're improving kind of their front end when they're dealing with clients and customers to make it easier for them to design and ship these chips using the Intel Foundry. It's like their latest product is pretty much all TSMC except for a few parts and again. Packaging, their packaging is up there. They're market leading, and they have more people coming to them to start doing that because they've got top of the line stuff as compared to like TSMC, who's having some issues with their top end packaging, namely the Blackwell issues that NVIDIA has been talking about. So there's some good and there's some bad, but Intel is going to have some bad quarters ahead of them, just because they're in a tough spot. They may be able to turn things around next year. I mean, they're not going anywhere. That's one thing that people are like, oh, they're doomed and they're going to go down the drains. And
yes, Intel's going to wipe themselves out in a quarter.
Yeah, no, they're not going anywhere. And their manufacturing is still still impressive what they have, and the manpower and engineering behind there, and the mind power. It's impressive, and they're doing some things with 18A that it sounds like it's really on track. and going to be
Sounds
a
like
next
it.
year thing.
Yeah.
It sounds like it, but we won't know until, of course, the rubber hits the road. But they have been improving their position dramatically on Foundry, and a lot of their business philosophy is based upon having advanced Foundry services that nobody else has available to them, and they fell behind. TSMC is cleaning their clock. In fact, they're going to TSMC for their CPUs and GPUs and other things. So it's going to be interesting to see. They're a company in transition, and they're cutting costs and they're cutting employees.
Lots of employees.
It's going to be a bloodbath for a while until
they've more than decimated them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
usually
cut
that helps
15
float your stock.
Yes, they cut. Here's what happened. AMD announced financials first, then there's a day or two, and then Intel announces all these things at once.
Beheadings.
They announced their kind of interim solution to the desktop issue, which we're going to talk about next, and they also announced that they were canceling the dividend. Intel,
that was
how
a big
long have
thing.
they had a dividend?
Yes.
For a decade, I think, and that was one of the big things about you own Intel stock, you get a dividend. I mean, last quarter they spent $500 million on the dividend, and that was $500 million that they couldn't afford to spend.
Yeah,
and so you're going to get a Q3 dividend, but that's it. Q4 they're cutting it off, and this was a big thing. This has been a controversial thing because when you pay a dividend, you're paying your shareholders. But none of this money is going to employees. It's not going to R&D, not doing any of that stuff. And it's if you're
Josh,
a shareholder,
someone has to think of the shareholders.
Yes.
What?
Someone has to think of the shareholders.
Yes, exactly. So that should have been cut a long time ago when they started hitting this. But you don't want. But if you do that, then your share price drops dramatically.
Yep.
So it's something that they needed to do, and they should have done it far sooner and saved $1.5 billion this year so far.
All right. Well, hey,
poorly.
Speaking of cost savings, instead of doing a recall on the 13th and 14th gen parts that may or may not become defective as you use them, Intel is offering instead a 2-year extended warranty. And who doesn't love extended warranties? You go up to the checkout, you're buying a Blu-ray copy of something, and they say, do you want the extended warranty on this? Anyway, they're going to give you 2-year extended warranty. And originally it sounded like it was only going to be for retail boxed parts. And then you have to contact your system integrator if you bought a system from a place like, Falcon Northwest, Main Gear, something like that. Now, Falcon Northwest does 3-year warranties anyway. But now they've clarified that. The same Intel employee posted on the Intel community site, quote, following Intel's earlier announcement regarding 2-year warranty extension from date of purchase up to a maximum of 5 years on Intel Core 13th, 14th gen desktop processors. It doesn't say gen. I added that. I apologize. 13th, 14th desktop processors. Please see below for additional details on the program. And the following processors are covered by the warranty extension. I will just say it is 13600K and KF and up. So
including the KS. Yeah.
Yes. KS, K,
voted
KF.
Processor most likely to die in 2024.
Even the 13900 and 14900, because this isn't really a power draw issue so much as it is a voltage and possibly memory subsystem issue. So, standard warranty process and terms apply, it says. And this is box processors, tray processors. Wait a minute, though. Tray processors, please contact your place of purchase for further assistance.
Yes. And OEM or system integrator, contact them, because guess what? We're giving them the middle finger.
Now, I wonder if they're getting any kind of payment for this. Like, what if they submit, like, hey, we had to replace 73 processors this week?
Well, there's currently 2 prospective class action lawsuits from 2 different law firms that are looking into this. Because, yes, if you bought a retail box and built your own system, yes, you're covered. Good on Intel for doing that, because you're going to need it. If you're smart enough to slap some serious voltage limitations on your motherboard, do them. But the problem is, you got to trust your systems integrator did that. And they probably did, to be fair. They probably did realize what was going on after the first couple they put out. But the thing is that there are now 2 different law firms in the States looking at starting a class action lawsuit because anyone who bought a complete system is not getting this extended warranty. They're going to have to deal with the system integrator that they bought it from. And I'm shocked that the system integrators aren't livid at this point, because it's going to be now on them. And they're, like you said, they've got a 3-year extended warranty, but that's going to be on them to replace that CPU that, if the person had bought it, would be covered by Intel, but is not, because they're an Intel licensed systems integrator that sells complete systems. So we'll see how this works out. It may just be 2 very large law firms staring each other in the eyes, and then one decides to back down and say, okay, we'll shoot you some money if you get systems sent back.
This sounds like they're blaming the integrator for buying the wrong CPU from themselves.
Which is, yeah,
not
in
sure I
bird
can follow that logic.
culture.
We apologize. You bought the wrong CPU. If you'd bought a different one, yeah, it wouldn't be a problem. But essentially, you bought one that's going to have a problem. We're really sorry about that, but it's on you.
Yeah, but don't talk to us.
We don't know.
To the integrator. Yeah.
We don't know what kind of deal might be happening behind the scenes, but it sounds like they're steering people back to their integrator. Interesting move.
We're going to take a break here and hear from this week's podcast sponsor.
So it's back to school time at your house and you want to keep quality nutrition on the table. Green Chef is making that way easier with 35 customizable recipe options every week, including options to double portion your protein or veggies. For ourselves, we've been very pleased patrons of HelloFresh, and now we are happy to expand our culinary choices with even healthier selections from Green Chef. Why not take opportunities to enjoy them both? Green Chef is making eating well much easier with meals consisting of quality whole foods with limited processed ingredients that can also help contribute to a healthy lifestyle, whether your preferred diet is keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, or gluten-free. This is for anyone that enjoys tasty food that's good for your body and even the planet. Green Chef has over 15 recipes every week to support those lifestyles and more. You'll also find these recipes are ready in 25 minutes or less. You can tailor the menu to your needs, satisfy and feed the family, and all done in about 30 minutes. Now this fits back to school time quite nicely. For ourselves, keeping up with our own busy lives, preparing meals with Green Chef saves us so much time. Take your own clean routine further. Combine Green Chef's healthiest menu ever with easy access to thousands of top-rated gyms and fitness studios worldwide using ClassPass. For a limited time, new Green Chef subscribers will also receive 50 free credits to use at ClassPass, which is usually about a month's membership. Go to greenchef.com/PCPerClass for 50% off your first box plus 50 free credits with ClassPass. That URL again is greenchef.com/PCPerClass and use code PCPerClass, where you will get 50% off your first box and 50 free credits to ClassPass. Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well.
The next story comes via John Bach. You may not know John Bach, but he's the president of Puget Systems, and he also represents the company on the Intel Board of Advisors.
Yeah.
Are you not sure? Are you sure that his name isn't pronounced?
No, that's the noise he made at the Intel Board of Advisors meeting.
The fact that he also represents on the Intel board, what relevancy does that have?
Let's see. He helps Intel see the real world application of their products and how to better serve their users. So, I mean, he's obviously looking out for not only his customers, but possibly also Intel's interests. He posted this
so he's
article.
an AMD shill then.
Uh-huh. He posted this article called Puget Systems Perspective on Intel CPU instability issues. I would call shenanigans on this.
PS
Copyright infringement.
First of all, where is Adored now? Because this seems like a flawed perspective to me.
Ouch!
Good bit of a conflict of interest here from Mr. Bach. But let's go down. First of all, he talks about how Puget Systems is different and how they make things
that's a big
to be very, very stable, they mistrust the default settings on motherboards and commit internally
Wise.
to tests and apply BIOS settings. Well, that's not
Wise.
incorrect. You don't think Puget Systems does their own custom BIOS settings?
What is that spike towards the end there?
Okay, so
wait, I just want to ask a question here. If they're doing that, if they're putting in their own BIOS settings and kind of tuning their own BIOSes in order to kind of evoke the best performance, how did they know when they got the Intel chips in to not stumble into the longevity voltage issues when there was almost nothing that they could do BIOS-wise to fix the problem because the CPUs were actually calling for more voltage than they could handle?
That might explain the tailing end of that chart that Sebastian just had up there.
now this is not the picture that has been posted around everywhere saying, see, there isn't a problem. This is all going to be fixed with microcode. This one actually looks kind of bad. Look at that 14th gen spike here.
Yeah, that's huge.
This chart also reminds me just how trash 11th gen was.
Is that 2021?
Yeah, but look at that 12th gen. That was solid.
12th gen will go down in history as what? The second coming of Sandy Bridge, maybe? Like original Alder Lake will have some legs. Because now that 13th and 14th gen is a question mark, I think the 12900KS might be the flagship Intel part right now. I'm just going to go based on that. Like, don't worry about overclocking and overvolting and potentially getting to 6 gigahertz.
Let's just run with that.
Let's just run up to 5. That's fine. Anyway, the chart that has been shown around
is the shop failures.
Yeah, Puget Systems CPU failure rates by generation, field failures and shop failures, and Intel 11th gen by far the most, 7% plus of all systems. 12th gen was really low, like 1%, but 13th and 14th gen, it's only just over 2%, and AMD was over modest. 4%,
twice as bad.
So their concern with reliability is with AMD. At Puget Systems. I mean, look at those failure rates with Ryzen 5000, 7000. That's just unacceptable.
It is high and it's solid, but the 11th gen far outstripped it. And honestly, this is failure rates, but it doesn't get it into volume because I bet you they sold significantly more 5000 and 7000 than they did 14th gen.
It's not like Puget is pushing Intel at all.
No.
When their president is an advisor to Intel. Not at all. So he does say, quote, we aren't including AMD here to try to deflect from the issues Intel is currently experiencing, but rather to put into context why we have not yet adjusted our Intel versus AMD strategy in our workstations, end quote. Obviously, we could read into a possible conflict of interest with this study, and it's his own company, and he can publish the study if he wants to, but it's been cited a lot, and you're going to see this image, and people are going to point to it and say, see, AMD's worse. This is overblown.
AMD is more interesting. AMD is more, like, my last two platforms have been AMD. I might go Intel next gen, but they better, get their stuff in shape before I do. But AMD is more interesting to set up. It has personality in general. And there are things you need to do to get it to work. And if you're a systems builder, you need to be able to build a reliable system very quickly and with the exact same checklist. And Intel will generally give that to you. It's like, no, if we've got this board and this CPU and we put them together with this memory, boom. It's going to turn out the same 90% of the time. AMD, well, there's some AGESA code and there might be some
memory training
quirks and quarks and there's the memory training. So as a systems builder, I can understand that it's like, no, you are allowed to spend this much time on the system before it goes out and gets sold. We've got a guaranteed delivery date. You can only spend this much time. Whereas, a home builder like myself is like, no, I will spend as much time as it takes to get that AMD system humming around happily. So I can totally believe that those failures are not qualitatively the same as the failures of that Intel Core 14th gen, because that 14th gen chip is probably coming back dead. That AMD chip is probably coming back, and they don't define failures. Failure may mean that, yeah, it came back, we had to fulfill the warranty, got it running again, and away it goes. But we never had to change any components on that AMD system. It just, we needed to tweak a few things, update this, and away it goes. Your 14th gen is probably coming back having toasted itself. So yes, on the one hand, I say, yeah, he is on the Intel board of advisors, and there is certainly a monetary drive to be able to continue to improve sales. But at the same time, this is just a quantitative graph. It's not qualitative. It doesn't describe what those failures are, and it would shock me to find out that the AMD side of that was permanent failures. The Intel side on the 11th and the 14th, yeah, those were probably dead systems that needed significant changes.
TLDR, AMD doesn't seem to burn itself to death. Intel.
Well, there were those.
So they used to, but they don't anymore.
Listen,
they don't anymore.
Bombs.
It's very interesting. Like context matters, because there was a period of time where AMD had some problems because memory was being pushed too far, memory voltages were too high, and there was instability and even some damage physically reported as a result. So we've pared that back. There's new microcode. There's a 1.35 volt practical limit to memory overclocking. You really shouldn't go over that. And then you're fine. I've finally managed to overcome all the memory instability issues that I experienced on AM5 back when I was running this 1.4 volt kit I was sent, and running 1.35 is fine.
But to be fair, you've literally killed DIMMs.
I've killed 3 sets of memory running them at 1.4. Yes.
So, hey,
but that's neither
I'm not
here
saying
nor
AMD's perfect, but
yeah, it got to the point where I had to boot the system using like JDEC spec and then slowly work my way back up to, the memory training and all that fun. So we don't need to go back down that road.
No.
Let's talk about some rumors now. Josh, I saw that you had posted something on
Blackwell?
Twitter the other day about Blackwell from Semi Analysis, that the Blackwell chip family is possibly having some issues.
Yeah, and it's going to have impacted production through the first half of 2025. But this is not their desktop Blackwell chip. This is their higher end. It's like the H100, that kind of thing that requires, an interposer / substrate that will connect to not only multiple chips, but also HBM stacks and whatnot. And this is an issue apparently with TSMC's packaging, kind of a higher level COWS. I can't remember the exact acronym. Chip on substrate on wafer, something like that. And so this is an issue with packaging. And it seems like it's not an issue with the actual chip itself. I talked about how, modern GPUs are massive chips, many, many billions of transistors. And every year we have software that improves quality of these chips from design, because a lot of it is a lot of automatic trace and route and place and route. So you don't have, hand laying of transistors by, thousands of interns and engineers, because it's impossible to do with chips that are 40 to 100 billion transistors in size. But this, issue is not with the actual chip itself. It seems like it's with the packaging, and that's why it's affecting the AI chip series, because again, these are higher end chips. They're selling for $20,000 to $30,000 per unit, if not more, next year, if Blackwell comes out and is just stomping the ground with everybody. But yeah, they have to have very, very specialty packaging to run at where they're supposed to and to give the performance they do. But in terms of Blackwell for desktop, it's just going to be a single chip attached to GDDR7X probably. and it's probably going to be fine. So this is going to hit their high end. It's going to hit their high end margins. And, if AMD keeps moving up with their MI series and Intel finally, gets Gaudi up there where it needs to be, then it could have an impact on NVIDIA's bottom line at the data center. But they're still strongly shipping their current generation of AI products. They're shipping more than they can produce. So,
Yes.
well, no.
Yeah, why is this a problem? They're going to continue selling existing architecture for $30,000 a card forever until
it's going to allow their competition to catch up a little bit. So,
and Josh, I'm sure you were right. No, they've probably promised more cars than they can actually deliver at this point.
Do you think that it's possible that the AI bubble will burst before Blackwell is released if it is indeed delayed? Do you think 6 months or so?
Even
or is
Bloomberg,
companies going to keep on throwing money at AI and seeing no return?
No, even Bloomberg and a couple of other trade magazines are now pointing out that, we're not seeing a single return on AI, and it's...
No, I don't think they're done.
It's the fact that we're not throwing enough money in it yet.
They're not done. I thought that by October, November of this year, we would see some of that weakness and bubbles burst. But the amount of money that Meta and all these other guys are throwing at it. And again, we can go back to, this isn't all just LLM stuff, large language models. It's a tremendous amount of actual machine learning, data analysis. And the biggest problem we see right now is not the bubble bursting. It's going to be energy and cooling for all of these hundreds of thousands new machines and chips that are all being used for not only just, rendering crazy pictures and videos and writing
how bright your headlights are supposed to be.
It's a tremendous amount of modeling and data analysis. Those are the killer apps for AI, because we have so much data. We have 30 years of good quality digitized data that
you can just scrape for free. Yes, just scrape it all.
It's the boring side. It's the boring side of machine learning, but it is the more interesting side for us.
It's wildlife management. It's geological surveys. It's all of these things that we've got all this data and not enough people to do analysis, and we're finally have the tools to do these mass amounts of data that we have stored for just decades.
Yeah.
And climate.
Don't worry, it doesn't track how many times you've been to the 7-Eleven or Three Guys. It's it's geological data, it's ecological data, it's wildlife, it's we're modeling
you're right. It is looking at people and pictures.
Well, okay, fair enough.
It kind of is.
Things like that.
That's not as valuable as finally figuring out atmospheric.
Not everyone.
There's an entire sideshow in this space that really we're not really paying attention to yet. That is, we do mention later on in the show, and that's the AI development that's happening in the security space. And I think it's going to be really fascinating to see on the attack and defense side, the malware developments in AI that is figuring out how to attack systems, even within not just modeling it and then creating an entity and sending it out to find weaknesses or figure out how to attack systems, but actually calling back in with information to AI systems and developing attack vectors on the fly. So you're going to see that, as well as defensive measures that look for these characteristics and heuristics and dynamically adjust on the fly to defend against such attacks. I think this is going to be an interesting sideshow right now, but I think we're going to see, I'll just call it the birth of the AI wars. I really think that there's going to be a security explosion in the AI space soon. It is just now beginning.
Yes. And it will be the same as it was back in the medieval times, where it's the escalation of offense versus defense.
Yes.
Yeah, you can build those castle walls, but we're going to...
It's the CIA versus KGB. in the Cold War.
No,
just
we
kept
changed the name of the
ramping.
KGB.
Yeah, I know it's GRU
Well,
now. I'm
Think
talking
about how much
GRU now.
we spend on that right now, and then sort of move that over to the AI space, because the information and IT space that we sort of cat and mouse each other with is enormous, and the virtual surface area that we have for that is tremendously large. Now, the AI development of attack and defense in that space is just now coming into fruition. So I think you're going to see a tremendous amount of growth that we may only see hints of to some degree.
So in other words, the bubble's not going away anytime soon. We may see some consumer-facing stuff like Copilot get pulled back so that they're not using as much electricity, and you're going to have to wait longer for your stuff to come through. But overall, AI bubble it's going to be around for a while. But let's move on.
So we can find a new bubble.
They'll know that you want. They'll know you want food before you do. That's
all I know about AI is that as long as they continue harnessing machine learning to make drivers more forgiving, then I guess there is a need for NVIDIA's products. Well, there's a lot of machine learning involved in where to put the perimeter weighting and how to make clubs more forgiving and stuff. So finally,
fix the heat sinks to your golf club to be able to handle the processing power.
It's air cooled, so as you swing, it cools the arm chip that will doubtless will start to show up inside the clubs. It'll know where to throw the weighting. Like, you're swinging so offline. Quick, throw some weight over there behind the ball. Possibly illegal for tournament play. Our next story comes from videocards.com. NVIDIA to discontinue the RTX 3060. It's Steam's most popular GPU. Replacing
How do we know that?
The 1060. Probably a Steam survey, right, Brett?
Well, gosh, yes, there is. And I think there's a quick link right in the article here.
Okay, let's see. I'm scrolling down. No, Steam hardware survey.
Oh, there's a snapshot
Steam,
from it.
Not a.
Yep. But
anyway, let's just look at this. Let's look at this picture.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So there's the 3060 with a market share of. I mean, this is pretty even. It used to be that something like it was 10+% of people were on a 1060.
Well, look at the DirectX 12 GPUs. 91.84%.
Yeah.
60 series for the win, of course, as is
right. As usual. 3060, number one. Number two, the 1650. So I guess that's the most affordable.
Integrated systems.
And you
buy a
powerful NVIDIA graphics GTX 1650.
It also is the last card that I know of that shipped without any PCIe power connector.
That may be correct.
I don't think there's a newer one after the 1650.
Wasn't the 1660 also a GTX that shipped after that?
But it required external power.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, 1660 has an 8-pin. So yeah, Jeremy, you're correct.
But no, you're stuck on a system without a proper power supply, so it doesn't have the PCIe power connectors.
Or if you're one of those people who loves the fanless lifestyle. True. They love those. That was like the 1050 Ti replacement for fanless.
Hey, I'm still stuck on the DX8 GPUs and below at
6%. I'm. Well, honestly, no.
How is anybody even on one of
these? GPUs are going down. How are the GPX 12 or DirectX 12 GPUs going down?
That's a GeForce 4800, 4600.
How are the DirectX GPUs going up? They went up from 6.46 to 6.85%
this
in a month.
Makes no sense.
No, this test seems flawed.
What is happening?
because the population changed, so they actually became a bigger percentage of people.
I'm pretty sure DirectX 8 and below is just what happens when you have no graphics driver installed.
Sebastian, do you fill out the Steam survey when you fire up one of your ancient machines?
The 3050, by the way, also had no power, no additional plug.
Oh, dang it!
Yeah,
fine.
Oh, really?
I don't see it on this list though. So of the GPUs on the list, that's all right. Fine, we were wrong, but it's all NVIDIA. You'd have to scroll pretty far. Let's see if there's a link.
There is.
There's a hardware survey.
Oh my gosh, it's not. Where is it?
There's no link.
I swore it was in here.
Okay,
it's probably like gray or something.
Let's Google it. Let's see. Steam Hardware. Oh, there we go. Hardware survey.
Yeah, it just updated. They bugged me Tuesday, I think.
Okay, so video card description. 3060 is 5.71%. 1650 is at 3.88%. 3060 Ti is at 3.47%. Then it goes 3070, 4060, 2060, 4060 laptop, 1060, still holding on. 3060 laptop, 4060 Ti. Where is the first AMD? Just generic AMD Radeon graphics is at 1.99. That's probably integrated into a CPU.
Bring on the Matrox.
The first discrete AMD card on the chart is a 580 with 0.75%. And our next story, this comes via Engadget. Chromecast, it's gone. Google TV Streamer, is that the name of it? Google TV Streamer? Oh no,
that's really what.
Did AI write that name? Yeah, this is powered by AI.
Because it's not a dongle; it's a wedge.
Does it come with this cutting board with the space to put your remote?
The deluxe edition does. It's an extra $387.
Oh wow,
it's well worth it.
Or is it just somebody at Engadget being cute?
Your pick.
I put it on my bespoke walnut cutting board. This doesn't look like walnut. The grain pattern is wrong. Google has given the Streamer TV a massive hardware upgrade compared to the Chromecast with Google TV. I guess that's a bad title too. 22% faster CPU. Wow. 22% faster CPU after 4 years. Incredible.
But, they've got to give the Apple TV 4K a beatdown.
Smart home AI features. Yes, all of that stuff.
And don't worry, Google never abandons any of their products.
Really?
Oh, scroll down a little bit
Chromecast.
Here. Okay.
Yeah. Right here. 11 years it took the Our Lady of Perpetual Beta.
Okay, that is impressive for Google.
It is.
They usually
a fairly long,
about 2 years.
That's
a fairly long beta program.
Is the new one also $35? Because that would be,
Sure.
Oh, it's $100.
No, it's not.
So now everybody's going to be getting one of those Amazon ones, right? The Fire Stick.
It's on fire.
What is that streaming one that they have?
Like,
what is it, the Luna? Yeah, Amazon Lunas. That's where it's going to be at next.
I'm going to go to Amazon.com right now. I'm going to search for streaming stick. And we're just going to see what comes up. So Roku,
of course.
$34. Roku Express, $19.
$20.
I can't even imagine how terrible the performance of this is. Oh, wait, I know, because my in-laws have this.
Yes,
and it's so hot to the touch. It sits in front of their TV.
But it's worth every $19 you paid for it.
Yeah. The processing within that is just...
Oh, Fire Stick.
It's like negative processing technology.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a lot of under $35 options still on the market, and they're all from Amazon and Roku. Google doesn't want to play in that space anymore. They want the high margin AI powered Google streamer. What was it called? Google TV Streamer.
Yes.
Google TV Streamer. That's right.
Okay. That's I'm glad we covered that. Next up, something. Oh no!
Oh
yes,
I saw this. This is actually old.
Okay, this is
kind of old. It's like a week or two old, but
it's like a week old. But I love
Apple. If you don't know the history of Apple and NVIDIA, it's interesting. There was this whole debacle with the MacBook Pro back in the day, where Apple felt like NVIDIA. I don't know if they misrepresented specs or tolerances to Apple or what happened.
Do you remember that? Like they called it the flip chip. It had a lot of difficulties with making sure that the chips actually stayed tied down to the board, and through repeated heating and cooling cycles, they would actually the solder balls would separate from the board. And oh my gosh, Apple had to recall, I don't even know, probably millions of laptops more than once.
And even though
they used the non-lead solder ball that
Yes.
With
And that was
fresh
NVIDIA's choice.
Yeah.
Even though Steve is no longer alive, Tim has taken that torch and he continues to refuse to work with NVIDIA
Yep.
ever again. So naturally,
Because he doesn't
when they
like their balls.
Yeah, that's another topic. Anyway, Apple has decided to skip NVIDIA GPUs for its AI models. That's shocking. Of course they would. I'm just surprised they didn't go with AMD, whom they have partnered with before a lot. They're using thousands of Google TPUs instead.
Maybe there was nobody they could go in the cloud space that would rent them, 10,000 AMD GPUs at the time, and Google was set up to do this.
So
I don't think Amazon. I think Amazon does just GPUs, or does NVIDIA? Yeah, I don't know. This may have been a temporary thing.
Yeah, well, like AI itself is a temporary thing. It's like, why would Tim agree to build like data centers and get all these Radeon GPUs? They're like, yeah, let's just rent some from Google for a while until this whole AI thing blows over.
Yeah, maybe. But they needed to train their models and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, he's the just-in-time manufacturing guy from Compaq who took over.
Yes,
took over Apple
now,
and.
This training period though is elastic, I think, if I follow like kind of the processing that they need to be able to do. So they need to upfront load their GPU, or the ability to crunch all these numbers and kind of get all the tokens distilled down and get the what they call AFM training, I guess. But they needed to distill that down, and I think they can feed it incrementally after that to sort of keep it current. So they needed to have this very large processing engine up front. So why not rent it? I guess that makes sense. Rent it from Google if you're Apple, I guess.
Or as Scott points out in our chat, blast from the past, Scott Michaud in our chat right now. He said,
Scott.
What about their own GPUs? Aren't their GPUs actually good? Why wouldn't they just put a bunch of Mac Studio, whatever, Macs on
they are, but they would have to build that out, and I think that's...
Okay, here's the problem with that.
I guess here is it's
software.
Because it doesn't run on...
Yeah.
Well, it runs on ARM because they're running it on Google software.
No, I'm talking about, the AI stuff. Everybody's using some open source things with PyTorch and and those and our Apple does not have that API, and they don't have those middleman software packages that NVIDIA and now AMD has and Intel has. As far as I know.
They're also able to, if I read this article correctly, able to slice up the Google supplied processing units into small slices of 8,192 chips, provisioned as 8 by 1024 chip slices, where they're connected together using a data center connectivity, very, very high speed networking. So they had some particular needs to get their models squished through this processing engine, and Google was able to step up for them. And again, I think this was temporary. It started with 6.3 trillion tokens. That's hard to rent a place to process that. But
yeah, well, Google will be the place to go to.
Yeah, Google, Amazon would be two at the top of my list. Good. But I know Amazon is in with NVIDIA.
Speaking of things that are temporary, I'm trying to segue into the next news topic.
That's
every once in a while, somebody... an executive will say something forward-looking that they shouldn't have let slip out of a boardroom meeting. And then they have to backpedal later and say, we listen to the community. We hear you. So Logitech executive says, Forever Mouse. They have this idea for the Forever Mouse that requires a subscription. A fee that you have to pay on a regular basis to get software updates for your mouse. So obviously this is not going to go over well. This is on an episode of The Verge's Decoder podcast. And it's the CEO of Logitech who says, I'm not planning to throw that watch away ever, so why would I be throwing my mouse or my keyboard away if it's a fantastic quality, well-designed, software-enabled mouse? The Forever Mouse is one of the things that we'd like to get to. Logitech CEO said the members of the Logitech Innovation Center showed a Forever Mouse and compared it to a nice but not super expensive watch. This is just insane. This is $200 mouse that you pay a monthly fee for.
But Logitech
yes, but-
sees the future subscription services. So Logitech looks around. What products do we have? What can we attach a subscription to? A mouse. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yes, let's do that.
This is stupid.
Wasn't there a comic book like that called Mouse as Useless Service?
Mouse as a service.
Oh, okay.
No, Mouse
so
is a useless service.
we have an update.
MAUS.
We have an update just 13 hours ago. This is on PC Gamer.
Oops. No,
Logitech says it has no plans for a subscription mouse. It's we've heard you. We've heard you loud and clear. And let's see. Logitech CEO, I don't know how to pronounce this, Hanneke Faber. She said that the Forever Mouse is, quote, one of the things we'd like to get to, end quote. Logitech's toying with the idea of a mouse you never throw away. So obviously that means you have to pay for it every month or something. Anyway, it's not going to happen.
It's like renting windshield wiper squirts from BMW. But a nice element from that second article is they're still calling it a possibility.
It's something for the future.
Just yet, but it's something we're keeping in mind. We're going to find a way to kind of extract more money from the people using our peripherals any way that we can. I'm sort of editorializing that last bit there, but the first
it would be expensive to buy up front, but don't worry. I mean, it's just going to keep on ticking, and when it doesn't, you can buy a new one.
It's time for Insecurity Corner. And we're going to talk about, well, let's see. What can we talk about first? How about Delta saying, CloudStrike, you owe us like $500 million for this.
I thought they were suing Microsoft.
They're suing Delta. Or no, Delta's suing CrowdStrike. Or they're threatening to.
Originally suing Microsoft. And now they've realized that CrowdStrike is,
CrowdStrike says it is, quote, highly disappointed, end quote, and rejects the claims made by Delta and its lawyers that the vendor exhibited gross negligence in the events that led to the global IT outage a little over 2 weeks ago. And it goes on. This is at the Register. One of the things that came from this that I was seeing in headlines was that Delta refused CrowdStrike's offer of on-site tech support.
For obvious reasons. What was CrowdStrike going to do?
Right. You're going to send some locally contracted IT worker to airports and say, all right, I got this email here with the name of a file I need to delete.
Power it on.
Yeah, I'll just reboot in safe mode. And
I brought a USB stick with me to reboot it. We got.
Oh no, the USB stick wouldn't work.
Okay, well, I got a list here. Four different things I can try.
System 32 and delete that update that ruined my last day of work.
The one that they did not properly test that was problematic.
They've admitted that they haven't really been properly testing. They've just been sort of, it seems to pass our stuff, so away it goes.
I'm not sure that anybody's really read the deep dive on this, but come to find out, there is a difference between the number 20 and the number 21. So if you're really interested in what really happened, you should go look at that. There's a significant difference between 20 and 21.
So you're little endian, not big endian.
No, it's literally the integers 20 and 21.
I know. 21, yes. I believe me, I know.
Oh, you read it then, so you know.
Oh, no, I lived it and read it.
Okay. All right.
Shall we go on? Or?
After 2 weeks of vacation, I can no longer actually tell you exactly what folder it is under System 32 and which file to delete. Josh has also experienced this pain and would like to move on to even worse things.
Okay.
Yes, this is the first story is a setup for the next one.
So the cyber heist.
Sorry, this stands alone. This one.
Okay. That cyber heist of 2.9 billion personal records. There's a class action lawsuit looming for that too. So a background check
there's
company.
Only a couple of thousand people involved, right?
No, it's everyone who's alive.
So what is this background check company? Jericho Pictures, doing business as National Public Data.
Correct.
So companies do background checks on people, look for criminal records before they hire them.
Yeah. They provide a service
Yeah.
as well as a callable API, if you can believe that. Guess which one got hacked. But anyway, they are a background check service. So whenever a company hires somebody to try and figure out whether you're a perpetual lawbreaker or ended up in jail for, I can't even go on. It doesn't even really matter anymore. The statute of limitations.
Well, you're in
run
a
out.
Turkish prison, so I mean,
I have escaped that. But the point here is that their job was to pick up data about pretty much everybody in the U.S., the U.K., I think a couple other countries as well, from non-public data sources. So they have a lot of very nicely collated data about quote unquote you. That includes your names, address, your previous addresses going back 20 some odd years, your associates, social security numbers, account information, just all kinds of personal relationship stuff. How you're connected to other people and things of that nature. Things that would be interesting to know from someone looking into, or a company or an industry, or maybe even a government agency looking into your background to try and figure out who are you. All of that data is now for sale, easily accessible to those ponying up a few dollars. And this is ripe for identity theft and just stalking, just all kinds of nastiness can come of this.
Yeah.
And you're probably in this.
Yeah.
Because people who never put their data into this, never said that they were available for, hey, search me out, are in this system.
This was not an opt-in. This was...
No. Quoting the article, the data broker scrapes personally identifiable information of potentially billions of people, none of whom ever provided their information to national public data, the lawsuit alleges. So this is... I don't know what the problem is, because this is just the foundation of AI. Like you just scrape stuff without permission, and then you leverage that to provide some kind of a service that you think you can make money off of.
Yeah.
So
funny you should mention that. Now that this data set is publicly available, it's probably fodder for an AI engine.
Absolutely. You think AI can train off of the dark web? There's so much interesting stuff on there, I'm sure, that it could train off of.
Oh, nobody will say that.
Do you think that AI can tell the difference between the dark web and the...
They're just looking at IPs.
Handled by DNS.
Forget about DNS. Yeah, just look at IPs. Okay, this next one is about email attacks and the surge in email attacks just in the first half of 2024, 293% greater than the first half of last year, which I believe, just based on the amount of stuff that now gets through Gmail filters, and I'm just inundated with garbage. And there's a lot of junk text
Thank you,
messages
Gmail, for making it easy to report a phishing email without opening said phishing email first.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know how many people's tax documents I've received this year? I think like 400 people's tax documents this year, and I don't know any of them. Oh, and I haven't read any of those emails, just based upon the header and the title of it. It's some tax document is enclosed for me for my.
I truly love
use.
The amount of IRS notifications I get.
Yes. Oh, you're in deep trouble.
Oh, apparently.
Maybe they don't know that you're in Canada.
I don't.
You're probably still in trouble with the IRS. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, you're in Canada.
I'm in trouble with everyone, but.
Yeah. Anyway, so the biggest threat here is, of course, ransomware. And where does ransomware as a top threat lead us? Why, it's the next story.
I was going to say, didn't someone pay a record-breaking ransom recently? But let's not go into that.
Probably. So this story tees up, and supposedly, as the purveyors of said ransomware like to brag about, an undetectable ransomware framework to build your malware off of. The source code is available for a rather measly $10,000, but you can take part in the framework for just merely a few hundred if you just want to use part of it to get your malware delivered. And it's picked up by the usual ways, usually the social, click on this image to see this funny dog, or download this PDF that looks official, or dovetail this with some of the very well-stamped official-looking emails coming from Nike, CVS, Walmart, or whatever, and you have a perfect recipe for an enormous number of affected systems that cannot be cleansed. I can't imagine what could go wrong.
So
We're on the
we
verge
need
of a malware apocalypse, in my opinion.
there are two different types of STIs that we need to teach our kids about.
Stop clicking on stuff.
Well, there's the ones you get in person and the ones you get on
And
the web, but they
whenever
are
you
both
leave the house, wear a helmet. Okay,
socially
that's a different
transmitted
suggestion.
infections. We're not supposed to call them diseases anymore, but they are socially transmitted infections, and they are pretty much going to ruin your life either way.
I think it's time to move to gaming quick hits. We have a story about AMD and the rise of AI while gaming plummets. Now, we did see the Steam hardware survey, and who knows how reliable that is, but nary a 7000 series GPU to be found. Scrolling into the low single digits, or even below, actually, like 0.75% even find a discrete graphics card. AMD reported their Q2 financial results, and despite a 9% year-over-year revenue increase for AMD, I'm quoting Digital Trends here, the gaming graphics division plummeted by a staggering 59%. Now, Josh talked about this last week. Part of that has got to be semi-custom.
Huge.
It's really a story of its financials, really.
We have saturation of the current gen consoles. This is kind of a non-story, but it's from Digital Trends, so what do you expect?
Oh, not a non?
I mean, AMD graphics is doing okay. I mean, like the 7800 XT was kind of a runaway success for them, but it only scratches the surface of what NVIDIA is doing. But the biggest is, of course, the consoles. The console sales are down dramatically. Royalties are down, all of that. We've got some handheld products from like Asus and MSI that utilize AMD silicon, semi-custom stuff, but it's just dropped off the face of the earth. It's not great. And, it's what the Xbox Series X has been out for 4 years, 5 years. Same with the PS5. Those 2020, 2021 years were outstanding for AMD. Kind of helped, keep them on the up and up because they were just selling so many consoles during COVID and whatnot. But now it's they're older consoles, and there are not that many, especially on the Microsoft side, reasons to get a new console because they don't have very many exclusive games. So their semi-custom kind of gaming stuff has taken a big hit. It's cyclical. We will eventually see when both AMD and Sony decide to update their platforms that AMD will get a boost. But AMD graphics still they're struggling against NVIDIA. I mean, NVIDIA has something like 85 to 90% share of discrete graphics. Mm-hmm. And the 7000 series are good. They're competitive, but people are, locked into an ecosystem and they like NVIDIA.
I guess I always thought the consoles would consistently carry AMD graphics forward with AMD inside, but sort of in a secretive way that they were selling, all of their GPUs through that sort of invisible channel. They didn't really need to do so well in the discrete GPU space, but you're right.
And part
sort
of that,
fallen off.
They are, but it's been a long time since a console refresh.
Yeah,
it's been a very long time.
And not only that, but the advantages of having your silicon in a console is it's a closed environment. It's a walled garden. Yeah. I mean, the advantages that you get on an Xbox, low level stuff that improves performance and does more interesting things, they can't pop that into the PC environment easily. I mean, they can migrate some features and add it to DirectX in the future, but it's a lot of the advantages that the console have as just being that walled garden and that they can really focus on getting the best performance and visuals out of it in just a single platform rather than 100 video cards out in Steam land.
And I don't want to curse anyone, but the fact that NVIDIA is now focusing pretty much exclusively on HPC and LLM type hardware means they're probably not even interested in the next generation console.
Oh, they don't even want that market, is what you're saying.
Like, it's
they
not
don't care.
interesting to them, which gives AMD another chance to get a huge supply line once they'd eventually come up with new next generation consoles.
Why would they be interested in consumer desktop graphics when with the same chip they can sell the data center, like the same wafer? What am I trying to say? The same investment in wafer from TSMC gets them one price for consumer and another price for data center, and it just doesn't make any financial sense to do anything but feed this ridiculous, overblown desire for AI compute.
Yeah.
If companies want to keep paying for it, then why not? Forget gamer goodwill. Just have the same stuff year after year. And yeah. But hey,
and if you ever doubt it, put on a leather jacket and just go up there on the stage and scream again.
Speaking of AMD and consoles, think of a handheld kind of console. It's really a PC. And, of course, we're talking about the Steam Deck. And anyway, your Steam demos are about to get much more organized. Now, I don't know if this is just
good
Steam
news.
Deck. Kind of looks Steam Decky, this picture here.
It extends to the Steam desktop as well.
Okay.
But yeah, it's focused on Deck, but it's definitely extended to the desktop as well.
Do you remember a story a little while ago where we talked about like demos that you download from Steam and how time spent in the demo was going to sort of count against the Steam Valve return policy? What they're doing is essentially addressing that problem where playing a demo was, you've got so many play hours essentially on the real game. You're no longer allowed to return that. Well, this sort of separates these demos, these freely available small scope tastes of a game into a separate space, and they're gonna make that more distinct inside the entire Steam experience and make it a lot more easier to find free demos, a lot easier to sort them, and they're no longer going to have this problem of counting against for returns because it really isn't going to cost you anything. They understand this is a free thing. They want you to experience this stuff. They want to facilitate companies putting things into here that make them easier to find and just not clutter it with free for a time or, mix it up with actual sales or gameplay time against sales. It's a demo again. Essentially, it's making the demo make demos great again is really where this is coming from, which is nice.
And it's good to see come back because
there's
a couple of games I've got on my wish list that I played a demo and it's like, yep, this one's going to be good, probably, but I'm not going to pre-order it.
It's a whole new space for them to do demo promotion and a way to manage it inside the visual space and how to manage it for downloads and how it counts against yourself or how it counts against your account. So that's a decent move.
It's time for picks of the week. Josh, do you want to get us started?
You know what? It's really hard to find X570 baseboard. So you gotta get a B550 if you want to keep on that AM411. Get a 5800X3D or that 5700X3D. Yeah, I've got the X570 version of the Tai Chi Razor, and it's a fantastic board.
But my god,
everything. Well, okay, you could turn those off. My wife has it.
But I got to figure out how to.
It's not hard, believe me. But a super solid board in terms of build quality, and it's it's got USB 3.2, all the bells and whistles, IDE, not IDE, sorry, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet.
Nice,
solid audio. NHEMIC is thrown in for free, even though getting it to work is sometimes a pain. for 170. A solid price. I mean, you can get stuff that is less expensive, and that was my door. I really need to oil it.
Yes.
And this is
sewing
it's
machine
a fun,
oil.
Yeah, I've got the triple thing oil, but anyway,
Okay, well,
dogs need to be let
one
in,
is not.
and children need to be disciplined. So that's my pick. Discipline.
Discipline. Respect my authority.
Jeremy.
The 3-in-1 oil sort of works, but no, go with my old pick of the sewing machine oil. It just doesn't come up. It's pretty good, but regardless, and Josh, do you remember 8-10 years ago, Ace Rock came on the board, and it was like the most discount brand possible.
Yeah.
And now suddenly they're just no. These are solid boards. Do not diss Ace Rock anymore.
The first AM4 boards that they had were, back in 2017.
They were awful.
They were outstanding. No, they were outstanding. They're Tai Chi.
The first
I mean, they
ones.
came out with that.
Anyway, when they first came out, they were awful.
No, they were way before AM4. We're probably talking here like
they were. The
I
AM4
remember
board,
being
yes.
warned against them because I was buying them for projects like 10 years ago, like to do AMD memory scaling with APUs. And that was like the 970.
They were the utter discount boards, but no, they have
They
become
were very inexpensive. But hey,
respected.
I'm not going to let this go because you're thinking of BioStar here. BioStar undercuts ASRock significant. No, current. I am as a BioStar buyer for such like, you remember AM1? Remember socket AM1?
Yeah.
I bought like ASRock, BioStar, I was trying to go with the cheapest possible build.
Yeah, they were shite.
And the BioStar board that I bought could not even deliver 75 watts to the PCIe slot. It would crash every time the GPU would go into a gaming workload because I was using a 750 Ti that was slot powered. It couldn't handle it.
And it would go, whoa.
It would just turn off because it's like, no, we can't deliver 75 watts to the slot. Sorry, guys. Yeah, those are the bad ones. Josh is leaving.
No, he's
fed up.
to deal with.
He's done.
No, he's going to go get something.
No, he's going to get something.
There he is.
He's going to say, "Oh yeah, BioStar.
wait,
You mean
reach.
this BioStar?
You mean this BioStar right here?
God.
Oh, there it is.
780G. Oh,
Are you going to tell us? Are you going to tell us that
AMD's
board
about
is
to
great?
release a 780, aren't they?
Say that again.
We've wrapped around again several times so that the ancient boards are now new fucking chipsets.
Come on, man. This
Oh,
was
good
this
God.
was a this is integrated graphics 780.
Okay, it's almost midnight. We should probably get back to picks of the week.
Oh, the colors were
hold
so
on.
good back
Well, here
then.
you got your camera.
It's very colorful.
Yeah,
No, Colorful was a different company.
yeah.
Yeah.
Colorful makes graphics cards.
Still smells good.
Oh, I bet it does.
Smells like victory.
It's the smell captured.
burst
right
Smells
on
like
my bar.
leaking electrolytic.
It's victory
Whatever.
and
Put it
burst cap.
This
Put
has
it back in the
all
Mylar
polymer caps.
bag.
All solid.
back in the Mylar bag.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Jeremy, your
All
pick.
right, so hey, Zen 5 is amazingly power efficient, but if all you're doing is gaming, if that is your thing, well, there is still one chip from AMD that you should go for,
The one.
and that is the 7800X3D, which for some reason is on a back-to-school sale up here in Canada. 528 is not bad for what we've been paying up here.
Oh, the open box is 502, Jeremy. You can go for that.
I mean, if you trust it, and you probably should.
what could
'cause it's not
happen?
like you've been
What
mining
could go
Bitcoin
wrong?
on it. As far as I know, Canada Computers offers the same warranty on the open box as they do on their retail pack.
Note this is in Canadian Copex,
Yes, this
by
is
the way.
Canadian. For those that have only joined in the last 2 weeks while I've been away.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's been the tomato spirals that I've really liked. I spotted them when I was away. They're 1.8 meters tall, otherwise known as about 6 feet. And they are really cheap and really handy for holding up vegetables. If you occasionally go outside and follow your doctor's suggestion to, eat fresh vegetables. Highly recommend them over trying to MacGyver together some posts and stuff. You can find them in the ones that look like copper. They're much prettier. Lee Valley wouldn't sell me those. Do you guys have Lee Valley in the US?
I don't know what this. I've never heard of this before.
I don't know.
Oh, Lee Valley Hardware.
Gardener.
No, Lee Valley Hardware is the place you go to when you've realized that Home Depot and Rona and the rest of them are selling you garbage. Oh,
okay.
You've never realized that. Okay.
No.
Well.
No, I mean, I have, but I have other local places to get stuff from. I've never heard of this place, but yeah. Anyway, it sounds like, according to the chat, that 528 Canadian is roughly what these are selling for in the US if you do the conversion.
Well, good.
Unfortunately, those are like $385. And when I went to look to buy one, thinking I've got to have, and it was never sent one, I should buy a 7800 X3D. How much are those going for? Like $300? $300? No, $380. So it hurts. All right.
Yeah, there were some nice deals about 2 months ago, but not anymore.
Yeah. Brett, your pick.
I decided to feed the keyboard weirdos amongst us this week and went for something kind of interesting, a little bit retro, but I believe, based on the specifications, still reasonably high quality. So this is from a company called 8BitDo Retro Mechanical Keyboards, and they are delivered in the N and FAMI styles, and even a C64 style.
You're not familiar with 8BitDo?
No,
or 8BitDo? They're very, very well known brand. They got into keyboards a while back.
I wasn't shopping them until recently. I was just, this is really interesting. So these are fairly serious mechanical keyboards with cal white switches, aluminum backplates, some programmable keys, and done in a real nostalgic look. They're 87 keys, so not tremendously large. They'll operate wirelessly or wired, and they have that sort of vintage style, that vintage look that would be very interesting for somebody maybe doing a vintage build, or just if you want to have a sort of a different keyboard. If you want to call back to some gaming, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if you're into the NES in the US, they have that color scheme, and if you want to go old school Famicom from Japan, they have that color scheme too. So they've got you covered.
One other thing I want to mention is the ancillary buttons that they include, kind of an A/B sort of thing that you can, smash that button to do different things, and you can set that up to, you can map that to pretty much anything, the escape key or, a control key or whatever. It's kind of a cool add-on, and it's an attachment. Giant floating buttons that you can position on your desk to.
I love the volume.
Do whatever you want.
Control here. This is
so classic.
This is very teenage engineering looking. Honestly,
check out the C64 one at the bottom where they've got that rainbow coloring and that very C64 brown on brown look.
Oh yeah. That's good. This is great.
Yeah, it looks really, really nice. Anyway, if you're into that sort of thing, definitely check them out. They're not too expensive, and believe it or not, I found them on Woot. So they're actually having a sale for slightly less than Amazon. Amazon, they're priced below $100 right now, but I think they're available on Woot for even a little bit less.
Nice. If we go all departments, let's see, 8.
Yeah, there's the Commodore 64 one with the, is that a joystick?
It comes with. So they do everything. I have for a long time been using this one, the SN30 Pro. It's in my living room right now. It's my sit back on the couch and play a game with a controller controller for my PC. And
So you find their build quality pretty good?
It's extremely good. Their button presses are as good as original.
Now the keyboards are Cal. I think it's
I can only speak for the controllers.
White.
I've never used one of their keyboards, but they make outstanding controllers.
So there you go.
Yeah,
check them out for keyboards for your vintage build. Like put them, modern components in an old IBM PC, case. It might be cool.
They have the aesthetic, 100%. Yeah. Let's see. My pick this week, Josh mentioned AM4, but what if you want to take the plunge into AM5? And lately, I've been using more and more this Asus Strix B650A. I used this in a case review, and then I just kind of kept it around because it's very reliable, using any AM5 processors. It's been a workhorse here, and I didn't mind downgrading from X670E because I wanted reliability above all. And my one sample AM5 board before this was somewhat problematic in certain ways. So even though this one doesn't get the most amazing reviews, I saw the Newegg listing, which is $10 more, has a bunch of negative comments. At this point, if you get this board and update it to the latest microcode, it's probably fine. I've never had an issue, but I religiously update the BIOS. It is $219.99. It has built-in Wi-Fi. It is the Strix B650A gaming Wi-Fi. And it has that sort of silvery look to it. It can look at home in a white case, as I attempted to prove, not necessarily successfully. This button here, this is an Asus patented thing, I think. I've had a couple of their boards that have this. You install the GPU. When it's time to take it out, just push this button. It releases it.
Nice.
And
so do you dare?
I do dare. It's for those who dare, and I dare. I dare to take off this M.2 shield right here and not use it at all. That's what I dare to do. I just put my 980 Pro, or actually non-Pro, 980 non-Pro right there. I don't care.
If you can't see electromagnetic interference, electromagnetic interference isn't real. You can't see it.
It's not. It's heat.
Oh, heat.
Okay.
There's that.
Who cares about? Yeah.
It's a heat spreader thingy, but it's fine. I'm not worried about it. So yeah, that's my pick. It's upstairs right now on my dining room table, so I can't show it to you, but it's what I've been using to do some retesting of some existing AMD products while I wait for FedEx. So
is it up where the family can spill milk or orange juice on it while they're having breakfast?
Yeah, but they're not supposed to use that half of the table. I've tried to make it so I'm using slightly less than half the table. Mm-hmm. And my son can use the other half. Like he gets up in the morning and he eats his breakfast and stuff, and I'm there and I'm like, just stay away. I'm using an old monitor, so I don't care about that, but it's an open test system on a box. It's on a motherboard box.
Okay, that's the safest place for one.
Power supply is just sitting directly on the table with nothing under it, and it's fine. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. That is going to do it for this week's episode of the PC Perspective Podcast. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening and watching, and because of all the data breaches lately, I now know who all of you are. And I will now read your names and addresses right now. All 50,000 of you who I'm sure chose to listen to this podcast this week. Millions of people on YouTube. It's gone viral. There's going to be a vertical version of this where you can only see the center where nobody is. Yeah. And it's going to get so many views on TikTok. You won't believe
we talk about the things that no one else will talk about. So there's an importance to that.
It's a service that you just can't put a price on. But maybe you should. But enough about that. Please tune in again next week for more. Or possibly less.